My name is Crystal Clay, everyone, whom I have not met, which is many of you. And I am a strengths coach and a facilitator for my own company, Olive French Consulting. And having worked in HR for the last 30 years, I've had just the joy of employing many people, hundreds of people, over many years. However, I've also had the very difficult challenge of letting people go. And that has been, the worst case scenarios in those instances is when, somebody is really trying and really putting their best effort forward, and they're just not aligned with the right role for them, with their strengths. And so don't panic. My presentation isn't about the woes of HR, but it is, however, about the amazing things that can happen when you are aligned with your strengths as individuals, in your families, and in your communities. So, without further ado, one of the things that in our practice they made me do is talk about my strengths, or else, in full transparency, I would not have done that. But in terms of my strengths, when I took the strengths assessment several years ago, I found out, which was validated to me, that one of my strengths was a relator, building deep communications, arranger, connectedness, and also deliberative and self-assurance. So what does that have to do with the price of eggs? Well, in 1963, Edward Lorenz, he had this theory that if a butterfly flaps its wings, then it could create other air molecules that would flow into other air molecules, and it could create a hurricane on the other side of the planet. And of course, he was laughed out of the auditorium in the New York conference, and it became a comic. It became a myth. And so who would have thought that 30 years later, physics universities from all over the world, they actually decided that, oh my gosh, it is actually true that it is a butterfly effect. And so it became the law of sensitive conditions. And in pop culture today, the law of sensitive conditions is actually now what we call the butterfly effect, which is really if you make small changes, and then the small changes can actually create much bigger changes. So one of the key changes that we're really emphasize that in personal development is the shift in thinking. And one of the shifts in thinking is the conventional thinking that suggests that when you get an F on a report card, despite all of your A's, you should really just focus on that F. And it's really all about fixing your weaknesses and focusing a lot on your weaknesses as opposed to focusing on your strengths. And the strengths-based approach, however, is the opposite, and it really focuses on building up your strengths and focusing on strengths and capitalizing on your strengths. And people who do leverage their strengths are actually 3 times more likely to be engaged in the workplace, and they're 6 times more likely to have a better quality of life. And so here are some examples of individuals who have actually maximized their strengths in different ways. So these 3 gentlemen, I saw on CBS News the other night, they're at this Huskies restaurant in North Nashville. And they were roommates, and they were actually living in an area called North Nashville. And North Nashville is actually a very poor community, and it's 40% poorer than the rest of North Nashville. And so they wanted to make a change. They wanted to create change in their neighborhood. They wanted to be role models. And so what they did was they created an employment where people could work, and it created a change in the economy. And in Georgetown, Peneg, there's also a very difficult city to live in terms of their declining economy. And based on their declining economy, they decided that they would use what was called a creative city as part of their vitality and as an urban regeneration strategy. And so one of the gentlemen in the area, his name was Ernest Zakharev, and he was a Lithuanian artist. And he he created some of this beautiful work that you're seeing in order to regenerate. And based on his work that he created, he actually, one of the artists, the two children on the bicycle, was created as one of the world's best murals. And as a result of that, it re-energized the city, and it created great economy, and it turned around the country's economy. And as you will see here, Georgetown is not the only George. We have, and I see Nuala and Amy, my friends, here in the front. We also have the UNESCO site in St. George's. And based on that, we have Kristen White, who used some of her strengths, her strengths, to be able to make an impact on the community in St. George's, which was, strangely enough, it was known as a ghost town. And she used her ghost tours to actually revitalize the city. And so she has the capability, or her strengths was in the area of communicator and positivity. And then we all know the late Johnny Barnes, and he, as you know, Bermuda's roads are quite densely populated. And so one day he was walking to work, and he came across the intersection, which was quite frustrating for him in that he was stuck, and he decided to start to wave to everyone. And that caught on, and 30 years later, he was still waving to everyone and telling everyone he loved them. And so he used the strength that he had, which is winning people over, which is also called woo. And that St. George's and Hamilton is not the only place where things are happening. For you West Enders, I'm a certified tourism ambassador, and we also have a West End tour, I'll have you know. It's off the Wheaton Pass that I attended a few weeks ago. And it was an amazing tour. And the gentleman who did that tour was Clyde Bassett. And Clyde Bassett uses his strengths of context. He really is very much interested in history and the past, and to make things happen and to make connections with the past, the present, and the future. And so how can you use your strengths in communities? Right now, Rhode Island is looking to make their state the first strengths-based state ever. They have a reputation of being a state that is known for its power and criminal, high-powered criminal activity, and they are turning that around using a multi-layered approach by using the Cliff Strengths Finders in the workplace. And so each one of us, like that butterfly in the butterfly effect, have an opportunity to make one movement, whether it's in your neighborhood, in your school, in your workplace, wherever it is, but you can make one movement, you can spread your wings, and you too can also create a butterfly effect and build a strength-based community where you are.
Anybody has any questions?
Hey, it's Kashai.
Hi, Kashai.
I have it's not really a question, but would you give us an example of one small shift in your thinking that led to a big change in your life?
Mm-hmm. Yes. One small shift in my thinking was when I did my PhD. And I stood in that auditorium, and they said that 100 of you are here, but there's going to be 5 of you left at the end of your 4-year journey. And I was worried about one particular subject. I won't say what it is. But I decided to, instead of focusing on what was my weakness, I decided to manage around it and focus on my strengths. And I shifted my thinking towards that subject, and I was successful, but I have used that principle in every area of my life to propel me forward.
Any more questions? Questions?
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Alia here again. So in Bermuda, where do you think we really, warrants the most attention when it comes to strength building?
The schools, I would say, for sure. If our students could celebrate, understand, identify, celebrate, and apply their strengths very early on, then it would help significantly in building their self-esteem, their self-confidence, and their propensity to make decisions in the future that will help them to reach their fullest potential.
I have a question right here, actually. Or wait, do you have one? No? I have a question. Can you talk to me more about how we could incorporate this into the schools more? What is your advice for bringing it into the schools?
One thing is to have the students actually take the assessments. At the school age, it's Strengths Quest,
Yep.
which is more appropriate to students. And then to actually, and it comes with actually a guide that they can use, and to be able to work with them and coach them on subjects or areas of their strengths, and have them actually work on particular projects that are specific to their strengths to help to build their confidence.
That's great. Does anyone have any more questions? We've still got a little bit more time.
Hi, Crystal. Hi, Crystal, and thank you for your presentation. Are there any resources that you would suggest we look at if we want to learn more about this concept?
Yes, you can. I'm not sure where I'm looking, but you can go to the Gallup website, and that can tell you all about the Cliff Strengths Finders. You can. I'm also a resource here in Bermuda, having been through the training as well. And there are numerous. There is also a YouTube exercise that you can use as well, which is Strengths-Based Thursdays as well, which is another resource.
Thank you so much, Crystal.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.